Hello and welcome back to Fluttering Butterflies. My name is Michelle and this is going to be another of my LGBT YA Roundup videos. At the end of last year I decided that I really wanted to be more vocal about my support of diversity within books here on this channel and also on my blog, and by doing that I decided to definitely focus more of my attention on reading these books but also discussing them. So I will leave a link down below to my previous roundup videos. I will also leave a link down below to a playlist of some of my other videos discussing diversity. So in my previous roundup video I discussed 4 books that I'd read this year. This video I'm going to be talking about 5 books. Let's get started. The first book I wanted to talk to you about today is How They Met and Other Stories by David Levithan. At the beginning of the year I had quite a few books of his unread on my shelves. Part of the problem with this book is that they are a collection of short stories, and for me previously short story collections have always been very hit or miss. The reason I picked up How They Met when I did is because I read one of his short stories. I think it was called Miss Lucy Had a Steamboat or something similar, that was included in the Love Hurts anthology that was edited by Mallory Blackman, containing quite a few different stories and extracts from books. That story was included, and it was this really great story about this really intense, explosive relationship between 2 girls, and the fallout between them both, and the main character of that story kind of comes to some interesting conclusions about her love life and where to go in the future. And I read that book and it really grabbed at me. I wanted to know more, so I picked up this book and I really loved it. It was a really sweet collection of stories, and I loved how surprised I was because as I started each new story I had to kind of grasp for different pronouns to try to work out in this different way. Am I dealing with male characters here? Am I dealing with female characters? Are they straight? Are they gay? I didn't know, and sometimes, and quite often, what would happen is I would just assume that these characters are gay based on previous stories, and I know that David Levithan writes a lot of gay stories, so I kind of expected it. And then once I got into that mindset of expecting a gay story, he'd throw in a straight story, and I found that really refreshing. Usually it's the other way around, and I really liked having that played with a little bit. And not all of the characters are teenagers, some of them are adults. It was an interesting collection. I loved most of the stories. I think there were 1 or 2 where I skipped, but it took a lot for me to skip any of the stories in this book. There were just so many surprises, and I really liked the different types of love that is mentioned. Some of it, like the story I already mentioned, covered an entire relationship. Some of it is just that getting to know you phase. Some of them are in relationships and just different stages, and it's meeting and breaking up and being in the relationship together. It was really cute, and I would definitely recommend this story collection, especially sometime around like Valentine's Day when love is in the air. After I read How They Met and Other Stories by David Levithan, I picked up Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I had been hearing absolutely loads and loads about this book. I was desperate to read it. Sat down with my Kindle because I downloaded it from NetGalley. And oh my god, guys, it is the cutest, most adorable story I've ever read in my entire life. It was just so wonderful. It's the story of Simon, this high school boy, and he's been having these conversations with another boy in his school. He has no idea who he is. The boy goes under a code name called Blue, but he's just having these conversations. Simon himself knows that he is gay. He just hasn't admitted it to anyone else because he feels a little bit uncomfortable with the idea of how that how knowing that he is gay is going to change his relationships, especially with his family members who have known him his entire life, especially from long-term friends, and how that might change. So it isn't the fact that he's gay that he's struggling with, but just coming out. I loved how the story focuses so much about Simon and his relationships with his family and his friends, both new friends and older friends, and at the same time there's also this mystery of who is Blue. And honestly, what I've said so far about this book just isn't saying enough about how much I absolutely adored this book and adored Simon and Blue together. My heart ached for them, and I really can't recommend it enough. The next book I wanted to talk to you about today is This Is Not a Love Story by Karen David. What I love about Karen's books is that she really plays with different sort of stereotypical things, and in this book, for sure, it's a different look at a love triangle. Typically in the past, we've had this girl and two boys, and it's been, you know, a struggle for the girl to decide, you know, which of these two boys is she going to fall for, which one is she going to end up with. And instead, Karen David has given us this great love triangle in which it's really in which the two boys are falling for each other as well. What I really loved about this book, besides the look at different sexualities and different romantic feelings and confusion, is that it's set in Amsterdam. It gives us a look at a different sort of locale. Amsterdam plays a big part in it. I also really liked the exploration of the Jewish religion. And I loved seeing a different sexuality, and I loved seeing different sexualities, a different location, and a different religion to what I'm used to. So I really enjoyed that book. The next book that I read is Lies My Girlfriend Told Me by Julie Ann Peters. I've read different books by Julie Ann Peters over the years, and I've really enjoyed how emotional her books are. And this one in particular sounded really interesting. It's about a girl whose girlfriend dies. Is that right? It's been a while since I've read it, but she dies, and she's sort of going through some of her girlfriend's things, and she comes across her phone, and on the phone are some text messages from another girl, and she kind of realizes that her girlfriend had been cheating on her before she died. And in this weird way in which she's trying to answer some of these questions that she has, she ends up befriending her the girl that her girlfriend had been cheating on her with, and they get into their own sort of relationship. And the thing that I really enjoyed about this book is that the thing that I found really interesting about this book is the way that the main character of this book starts to realize was wrong about her relationship with her girlfriend before she died. There was a very unhealthy kind of manipulative way about her, and I thought it was really interesting because it was interesting to see these types of unhealthy relationships in a different. What I thought was really interesting about Lies My Girlfriend Told Me is the way that this really unhealthy, manipulative relationship is cast in light, and you can kind of like that aspect of the book, but overall I didn't enjoy it as much. It didn't feel like it. But for me, I just didn't enjoy it as much as I had hoped I would do. And the final book that I wanted to talk to you about in this roundup video is This Book is Gay by James Dawson. This is a non-fiction guide to help teenagers and also parents and guardians, teachers of LGBT teenagers. And this book is packed with all kinds of fun, informative information about anything that you might want to learn about about love and friendship and relationships, about sex, bullying, places to go for information, all sorts of things. It also includes a lot of case studies and personal experience from James Dawson himself, and it just felt like somebody really caring was giving this information to people and really wanted to help. So I thought it was a really important, informative book that everyone should read, not just LGBT teenagers. That's it from me today. Round up to number 2 of the LGBT YA books that I've read this year. Have you read any of these books? What did you think? Do let me know in comments, and as ever, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.